Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another AvengersAssemble.net production of All of the Avengers. I am your host, Van Allen Plexico, and I am once again continuing my quest to read every issue of Marvel's Avengers comics and talk to you about it here on YouTube and on the podcast. This is part of the White Rocket Entertainment Network. You can hear the podcast by looking for White Rocket Entertainment anywhere that podcasts are sold or played for free. You can certainly help us out with this production by going to www.avengersassemble.net and clicking the button to become a patron. We'll definitely support. We definitely appreciate all the support we can get to keep the program going. I'm not trying to be hip and edgy in my hoodie tonight. It's just cold down here in the studio and my head gets cold. I just got a haircut. My hair is real short. So I'm trying to stay warm. Let us waste no time and get right on into tonight's 3-issue run. We're going to cover Avengers 29, 30, and 31, largely centered on the situation we left Henry Pym at last episode. You may remember by the end of Avengers, I believe 28, Pym had discovered that he was trapped at 10 feet tall. And so he couldn't change back to normal size. And so let us get right into it because this issue looks very promising. It looks like the return of 3 villains or semi-heroes, semi-villains, as the case may be, that will challenge the mighty assemblers. All right, so here we go. The cover, really good cover. You've got Black Widow in her original costume, which, as always, Marvel does weird things with the color on covers. I guess they're more worried about selling an issue to, back then they were more worried about selling an issue to somebody that didn't know really anything about the Avengers and were just picking it up off the newsstand or the spinner rack than they were accuracy with what had come before. So we know that Natasha's original costume with the little mask and the skirt or whatever and the little cape was, I believe, purple. But here it's green. So, okay, black. I don't know how a Black Widow is green, but I don't know how it's purple either. So fortunately, pretty soon they give her a black costume with the little red Black Widow emblem, and that would solve the problem. So there you go. You'll notice that in the foreground, attacking Goliath, he's now Goliath, is Power Man. That's the Eric Jostin Power Man, who will later turn up as Atlas in the Thunderbolts. Okay. And then in the top right corner, somebody who recently appeared in the Disney Plus series Hawkeye, which was about Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, the Swordsman. And it was really cool, by the way, I thought, to see the Swordsman pop up in the MCU. He is one character that I thought would probably never turn up in a MCU production of any kind. And he did, kind of. It was all right. It was kind of neat. He really wasn't the same character by any means, but he kind of looked the same, kind of acted the same, talked the same, and he was connected to Hawkeye. So good enough. Cool. And I want to say again, because I really do like this new yellow and blue, new at the time, yellow and blue Goliath costume. It takes what worked about the Giant Man costume and gives it a different flavor by being yellow and a little less oriented toward ants. You know, it doesn't have the helmet, doesn't have the little antennas sticking up in his forehead or whatever. It's just pretty much a brawler's, a tank, as they'd call it in City of Heroes, muscle-bound hero outfit. So there we go. This Power Unleashed. We are still in 1966, I believe. Let me look down here. It is June of 66 cover issue. So written early in 1966 when they were still 12 cents. Jan, I will note, is looking more and more like the Jan that we know. I thought that image there of Jan by Don Heck and Frank Giacoya is pretty much the Jan that we know all the way through the 70s, the 80s, and beyond. We still have that Wanda costume I don't love. I don't like how the head dress thing, did her like a frame around her face. That's just kind of bizarre. But otherwise, good enough. So this power unleashed, and we kind of get a recap that Goliath can't shrink down, and the Avengers are trying to do something about it. So I love this. This is so classic. It's 1966. They need a doctor. Now, their first thought is to call Dr. Donald Blake. They don't know that's Thor, but they know that that's the doctor Thor recommends and speaks highly of, right? Well, he's not available at the moment because he's busy being Thor. So Captain America's like, I remember a major from the Army Medical Corps. He now practices in the city. I'll find his number. So I love that Cap, rather than like looking in the yellow pages or going to the hospital or anything a normal person would do to find a doctor or a specialist, Cap thinks back to somebody that was in the Army with him that was good with medicine and figures he could, sure, some guy that was in the Army with me that was like a medic, I'm sure he can solve this problem of our superhero buddy that is unable to shrink. So they bring him in, and I mean, if this guy isn't out of central casting, this is totally how Jack Kirby would have drawn some major from World War II that's now, post-war, a veteran coming in. He's got the hat, the glasses, the mustache, the pipe, the overcoat. I love it. I mean, this guy is like, it's like if look up here, it's like if Reed Richards had a older brother, or if you combined Reed Richards and Ben Grimm. This is totally if Reed Richards and Ben Grimm were combined in the same character. Big burly guy, but smart with the glasses and everything. I just love it. So he's going to go in and take a look at Hank. He spends 30 minutes with him, comes out and says, well, the good news is he's going to wake up. He's not going to be like in a coma forever. But the bad news is if he ever tries to shrink back down to normal size, he'll immediately drop dead. Now, it's explained as the doctor can somehow tell that Hank's been under such physical trauma that any more strain would kill him instantly. But I just wonder, because for this issue and the next two after it, at least, right? Hank is battling his way through enemy after enemy, and yet he never, strains himself enough to drop dead, but yet changing size by, a factor of what? He's 10 feet. So just losing about 4 feet, maybe that's a little bit less than 4 feet. That's going to kill him. All right. The other thing, and this is something about the Henry Pym character we haven't really talked about on this show before, but it occurs to me now, and I want to see what you think. So we know that in later years, writers like Jim Shooter and David Michelinie will really explore the whole idea of Henry Pym psychologically. There's a lot of factors that go into his mental breakdowns that he has, culminating, when he later on he becomes Yellow Jacket, and that's part of his mental breakdown, and he marries Jan, and that's kind of weird. And then later he has another breakdown kind of egged on by Ultron around issue 160, 61, 62. And eventually that leads to him breaking down so much that he goes to prison. He punches Jan in the face. They get a divorce, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of bad stuff in Hank Pym's future, sadly. And what I'm thinking is, I wonder if any of it is connected to the fact that he's a brilliant scientist, right? I mean, if you name the 10 most brilliant scientists in the Marvel Universe, he's definitely on that list. He might be in the top 5. You got, generally the smartest person in the Marvel Universe is Reed Richards. Number 2 is probably Tony Stark. Different areas of expertise, and they recognize that about each other. And then you've got people like Bruce Banner and Henry Pym. Those are probably, I guess, in the modern Marvel Universe, you could add Shuri, T'Challa's sister. She's right up there. But I mean, there are probably others I'm forgetting, but those seem to be the ones that are considered like the most brilliant inventors and scientists and everything. And yet, wouldn't you think that would make Pym's superhero identity, something where he can use his brains rather than just brawn. And my theory is, and this may have been borne out in the comics and I just don't remember it or something, but my theory here is that he's always so insecure because Jan is always flirting and admiring other guys, especially Thor. And so Hank feels like his brains aren't enough to attract Jan. He's got to be a big, strong, tough guy too. I think they touch on that a bit later on down the line, but I just, maybe if Hank hadn't been so hung up on impressing Jan, and I blame her a bit too, maybe he wouldn't have gone down that road of so many problems. Well, anyway, there's a little psychoanalysis of Henry Pym. Well, you could spend a year psychoanalyzing Henry Pym, which just says a lot about the quality of Marvel's writing and the creators that did all these over the years. All right, so moving on. I'm going to move along quickly now. I only want to dwell on things that I think are really interesting to talk about. But I will point out here we get the return of the Black Widow. Now see she's in that kind of bluish purple outfit. We have a villain here, Dr. Yin and Excellency. We never really find out his identity here, but clearly he's some kind of communist Eastern Red Menace figure, right? Probably Chinese, I'm thinking maybe. He's kind of Russian looking here. Middle Eastern, I don't know. Anyway, bad foreign people is what we're supposed to take from it, right? So anyway, they've brainwashed Natasha into going out and destroying the Avengers. Okay, now, and meanwhile, Pym is reacting angrily. He's just frustrated. We get that, to being trapped at that size. I want to notice a note over here, though. This is what's now on sale, Fantastic Four 52. They don't have a picture on the front, and that's interesting. But it says, don't miss the mystery villain of the month, the Black Panther. He's a sensation. So this Fantastic Four 52, just 2 months removed from, I believe, the big Galactus Silver Surfer saga, right? Introduces the Black Panther. Man, say what you will about the rest of Marvel during this time, but Stan and Jack over in Fantastic Four just continued to roll out huge properties like almost every month in Fantastic Four. There was a long time there that it really was the world's greatest comic magazine, as they said. So here's to them. I think it also says a lot that Jack was doing the laying out and a lot of the writing or the story creation, we'll just say, of Fantastic Four, and not these other books. Okay. So she's taking it hard. Jan is upset. She goes to talk to him, but he's gone. Reintroduce the Swordsman. He's very happy to jump on board when Natasha offers him the chance to go get some revenge. Hawkeye finds out she's around again, that she's back, and he wants to run off and see her. They confront each other. Here comes the Swordsman and Power Man, and Hawkeye thinks they're attacking Natasha, so he's going to try to defend her. Finds out, no, actually they're on her side, and she wants Hawkeye to join up too, so they could be like the evil Fantastic Four to fight the Avengers. And they fight. Oh, by the way, there's the Stratomatic baseball game for 1966. That's a pretty cool ad. So they fight for a bit, and they fight for a bit. Oh, I've got to mention, meanwhile, Jan gets away, but she hasn't prepared, and I didn't realize she had to do this before, because I know that, all right, I remember the Marvel team-up issue with Chris Claremont and John Byrne, I believe, where Spidey teamed up with Yellow Jacket and the Wasp. It seems like I remember in that issue, and that was from around 1977, 78. I feel like I remember somewhere in that issue it's noted that Hank has done something to make Jan's wasp sting instantaneous, biological. She just does it. It just zaps when she wants to zap it, right? But here she had to actually prepare it, like arming a weapon or something, and she hadn't. And by the way, she's got on just a regular street outfit here, street clothes, clearly made out of unstable molecules, though, if Stan even bothered to address that. I love it. I think the Wasp looks really good in that red outfit, that long sleeve red top. That's a nice look for her. I mean, it's way better than a lot of this sort of goofy costumes they put her in, and including the one in the next issue, I believe. I really like that a lot. I think that Jan looks best as the Wasp in just like regular, outfits, something that's plain. It doesn't have to be, have a W on it or a Wasp logo or, stupid stuff like that. I like when her face and her hair are uncovered because she doesn't really have a secret identity, not anymore. And I just think it's cool. But I have to mention here, she gets attacked by a sparrow, okay, flies through its beak to avoid capture, hangs onto its feathers, and rides it until it lands on a tree branch. Okay, because she can't defend herself. She does note if she changes to normal size here to keep it from eating her, she'll fall. She's up in the air. So she lands on the branch, talks to the bird. The tree branch breaks. She falls down, hits her head, and gets knocked out. If this is not the most ignominious moment in the Wasp's history, I don't know what is. And this is somebody that later will be the chairwoman of the Avengers. And here she is losing a fight with a sparrow and falling off a tree and knocking herself out. All right. So the swordsman attacks Captain America and they fight. It is interesting how Stan kind of goes out of his way in writing these, when he's writing the swordsman, to always say the swordsman is so great, the swordsman is so great, because it's like Captain America we know is so great. So you have to really pump up the swordsman to feel like he's a legitimate challenge for Steve. And he, Steve is holding it. Well, the swordsman's holding his own. Steve would take him out, I think. But then Power Man comes in and he kind of makes Steve fight a two-front war, so to speak. And he gets knocked out and thrown in the dungeon. But hey, Cap's resourceful. He turns on his little communications device under his glove, calls Wanda and Quicksilver. They go. Wasp gets to Avengers Mansion, but there's nobody there. She tries to reach Hank. Quicksilver and Wanda go to try to rescue Cap and get captured by the swordsman and company. Goliath, Hank comes in and fights, and he's doing pretty well. The Wasp fights Black Widow. See what I mean, right? Now she's in that standard, 60s Wasp costume. Don't you think that red outfit she was wearing earlier in this book just looked way better on her? I just think it looks way cooler. I think she looks awesome in it. But anyway, so the Wasp lets the other Avengers out. They kind of work together to defeat the bad guys. Operation Mop Up, says Cap. But Natasha opens the door for them to get away. And Hawkeye says, this is really, really a big deal for me, okay? Because and in how many episodes now I've had to say, why, oh, why does Hawkeye have to act like such a jerk, especially to Captain America? And check this out. He knows that he's the cause of all this, right? He went after Natasha because he loves her and all that. And he says, all right, Winghead, say it. Go ahead, say it. This is one time I got it coming. It's not the one time, Hawkeye. It is a time, but it is not the one time. But Cap, being Cap, says, there's nothing to say, fella. We're all Avengers, yes, but we're also human beings with feelings and emotions. Clearly, the Vision has not joined yet. You did what you could. No man could do more than that. And Hawkeye thinks to himself, and that's the guy I've been riding for months? Yes, Clint, that is the guy you have been riding for months. You see that it's now bothering you a fraction as much as it's been bothering the rest of us. He says, I wish the ground could swallow me up right now. I've been saying that for months now. All right, so Goliath is back, but he's still depressed. And so we've got to continue on over. They're realizing that he's been trapped that way forever. It does in bullpen bulletins here mention that 52, Fantastic Four 52 introduces a brand new character called the Black Panther. We expect the largest male reaction of the year after you've met him. I wonder if anybody back then could have imagined that one day, let's see, 76, 86, 96, 06, 16. Really? Wow. All right, so 1966, 76, 86, 96, 06, 16, 17, 18, 52 years later, 52 years later, there would be a movie based entirely on that character that would make over $1 billion at the box office worldwide. Stan and Jack, if they had been alive back then, would have been rolling over. I mean, if they'd been alive. If they'd been dead back then, they'd have been rolling over in their graves. Fortunately, they were not dead back then. Unfortunately, they are now. But they, at least Stan knew about it. Poor Jack never knew that the Black Panther would make $1 billion. Imagine if Jack had gotten just a fraction of the money that these movies have made. Oh, because he worked himself to death in his basement all those years, just doing so many pages and pages of comics just to pay the bills for his family. And meanwhile, his properties, the things he created, go on to make billions upon billions of dollars. It's just astonishing. All right. The letters page, there was one I wanted to mention. Yeah. There's a letter here from Mike Friedrich, who I believe goes on to be maybe the head of Dark Horse, I think, comics later. And he basically tells the Stan, we tell you what to do. You don't, and so you better do what we want. And Stan's like, are you kidding, Mike? So quite the and then somebody wrote in a letter, students of Bethany College in Bethany, West Virginia, wrote in a letter defending Artie Simek for the way that they make the mean things about his name in the opening credits. In fact, if we go back real quick, or I guess I could wait till the next issue, but lethargic lettering. Yeah, it's savage script, explosive embellishment, powerful penciling, and lethargic lettering. All right, so that was number 29. Now let's get to our middle installment of, I'm using that other software again, remember? So there we go. There it is. Avengers number 30, Frenzy in a Far Off Land. So let's zip right through this one. Again, a cool cover. Got the floating heads cover. Captain America, Hawkeye, and Jan on one side. Swordsman, Power Man, and Black Widow on the other. And Goliath carrying some random South American dweller guy, whatever. I've read 30 and 31 again, and I really couldn't tell you who these people are supposed to be. Maybe we can figure it out together. Here we go. Friends in a Far Off Land. I love that Quicksilver's wearing Hank's cybernetic helmet. Honestly, it would have been even better if a whole bunch of ants had come pouring into their apartment. That would have been hilarious, but alas, no. Wanda says, I must leave the Avengers. Again, Stan Lee, Don Heck, Frank Giacoya, Sam Rosen, Irving Forbush, arbitrators. So again, we got room for a joke like that, but yet the colorist still gets no credit. I never understand it. I don't understand it. Another landmark issue. Okay, we'll see. So they get permission from Cap to leave because they want to go to somewhere, their homeland or something. This reminds me of that Yesterday quest that comes up that in the later 100s of Avengers around 1979. The Yesterday quest when they end up at Mount Wundagore and everything. But Maximoff, the Django Maximoff thing. But here, they've been noticing that their powers are dwindling. So they want to go home. I'm not sure where they consider home here, but we'll find out in a minute. So they get a vacation. Jan and Hank being back, it lets them do it. Hank's still upset, finds out Dr. Anton is a scientist that might be able to help him. So he flies off to look for Dr. Anton. Black Widow checks in with Hu Chen. That's the bad guy we saw last issue from the as we call them, the Reds, and I don't mean the Cincinnati baseball organization. These are the communists of the East. You must destroy the Avengers by any means at all. Do not fail. And she's still brainwashed. At least this is important. He notes that she has to do her job quickly. Her brief brainwashing may not last much longer. Okay, that's really important, because in the next issue, when her brainwashing, or this later in this issue, when the brainwashing does run out, no explanation is given other than I just love you so much. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. But the explanation is I just love you so much. And so now we have established the foundation that it could run out all of a sudden. Okay. So here we go. Oh, they're villains more or less, so they're going to start fight. By the way, it is interesting to me that that Black Widow almost, very soon, I think, becomes a hero. Swordsman is as much of an Avenger as a villain. He kind of goes back and forth. And of course, Power Man eventually becomes Atlas of the Thunderbolts, and for a while he's a good guy. So at one point or another, all of these villains become good. That also applied to Hawkeye when he had been a villain originally and became good. And it applied to Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. So there are a lot. This may be the single issue of the Avengers ever with the most either rehabilitated villains who become heroes, or semi-heroes, or will later rehabilitate and become heroes. You've got at least 6 in this issue. And then, of course, later Pym goes to prison, so we can really say 7. All right, so quite a lot of are they heroes, are they villains going on here. By the way, there's on sale now. I like these pages they're doing here because it lets us know where these issues fit into other Marvel history. And that cover right there with the Green Goblin and Peter Parker, that is one of the more famous Amazing Spider-Man covers ever. I think it's where the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn Green Goblin, first learns that Peter is Spider-Man, which is a really important aspect of that Green Goblin, that he knows Spider-Man's true identity. The movies, of course, played a lot on that too. The earlier Spider-Man movies, like the ones from 2002 and 2004 and so on. All right. So Natasha says, they're fighting over me. Let them fight. So they fight for a while because they're villains. That's what they do. And then she stops them. So Cap, Hawkeye, Jan split up. They'll use Plan S, separating. Wow, that's a great plan. To go around looking for information on where to find Goliath. Jan goes into a bar in, she says where it is, one of the underworld haunts, but she says, Bleecker Street, south corner of Bleecker Street. Here's something about seeing Natasha. So they converge there. Meanwhile, Goliath arrives in, I believe, at Dr. Anton's house and goes inside, but his stuff's been destroyed, goes outside, gets attacked by these goons from South America, apparently. He fights them. There's the guy he picks up on the cover, by the way. And they mention they're from the Forbidden Land. Now, I keep thinking of Khazar, but I think that's the Hidden Land. Marvel's got so many secret lands, Some of them aren't even on Earth, like the blue area of the moon. There's so many. I mean, and we love them, right? I mean, all Marvel fans love the various secret locations and hidden places and all. It's great. But, the Forbidden Land, I have no idea. I guess it's in South America, which means that we don't just need Baron Zemo to make the Avengers take off for South America. They spend an awful lot of time. The frequent flyer miles the Avengers must rack up by traveling to South America are truly remarkable. But anyway, so Goliath, he's thinking, I never realized how much I've missed being an Avenger. When I return to the States, I'll never leave them again. Okay, cool. All right, Hawkeye attacks the bad guys, and he's flying around doing his cool stuff. Swordsman knocks him down. Again, they fight. Swordsman has all those things that the Mandarin put into his sword. He can shoot fire and blasts and stuff. That's cool. Natasha shows up with arrows to help, but he thinks she's come over to his side. She has not. She uses the widow's bite to knock him down. And then the swordsman attacks. Meanwhile, we're really jumping around a lot in this issue. Meanwhile, in South America, again, we discover the Forbidden Land and the Guardian of the Flame. And they've captured Dr. Anton because he went down there. Well, this is weird. They captured him because apparently he came to their land looking, trying to figure out where this source of power he was detecting was. But yet Hank found the Forbidden Land guys in the doctor's house. So did they track him? I mean, we're going to be generous and say he came down there and then he went back home and they followed him back to his house and captured him. Because the only alternative is that after they captured him down there, they then went to his house. But how would they know where his house is? So we have to, they just don't really go into it. We have to assume that he visited, they saw him, they tracked him back to his house, they captured him. That's fine, whatever. All right, so we're going to learn, let me just go ahead and knock this out now. We're going to learn that apparently cobalt burning, okay, is what provides the power for this flame that the keeper manages, right? And it's very dangerous and powerful, and it's kind of made him power mad, as the Marvel saying would go. So they want to dispose of anybody who sees them. That includes Dr. Anton and now Goliath. And so Hank gets bailed out here by the Prince Ray, rightful ruler of the Forbidden Land. But what we're going to find out is he's not a good guy either. He wants control of the fire, and the keeper of the flame wants control of the fire, and they're kind of feuding and dueling between each other. And meanwhile, the guardian of the flame wants Goliath and Prince Ray dead, so they are going to chase them. All right, back to the Black Widow Hawkeye story. Swordsman knocks down Hawkeye. He's playing possum. He knocks Swordsman down. Power Man comes in. Natasha says, release him. Knocks Hawkeye, shoots an arrow, does the old "you missed, no I didn't" bang trick. Okay, we know, where Hawkeye misses, but he actually causes something to fall or crash on the villain. He's done it 1,000,000 times. He'll do it 1.5 million more. Now Hawkeye turns his back on Natasha. I'm going back to the Avengers where I belong. I don't know why you helped me the last minute, and she says, I came to my senses. The brainwashing wore off. Brainwashing? You mean, oh, my darling, did you think I would ever harm you, ever turn against you? It was the Reds. They brainwashed me into betraying you. Now, there's two ways to look at this. One, which I think we probably believe. We want to be charitable and believe Natasha, because we know that later on she's a great hero and a great Avenger, and champion, great member of the Champions. But one way to look at this is she's sincere, because they set up at the beginning of this issue that the brainwashing was temporary and would wear off. On the other hand, once she sees Hawkeye defeat all the others, maybe she does want to play along, so that he doesn't come after her too. But anyway, and maybe he'll lead her back to the Avengers, which is what she's wanted all along, to destroy the Avengers. Well, in any case, he wants to believe her. Meanwhile, a live news telecast from South America. It's our missing rocket air car. Police are trying to explain the disappearance of world-famous Dr. Franz Anton. The only clue is this strange craft found near his laboratory. Oh, so he was in the Amazon too. That wasn't entirely clear to me that Dr. Anton lived in the Amazon. But even so, I mean, my previous explanation still holds. It's just a little closer for them. So, right. So now they know kind of where Hank is. Jan goes and tells Cap, and so Cap's like, settle down, he can take care of himself. And then meanwhile, Prince Ray is leading Goliath deeper into the jungle, into this cave or whatever. and the Guardian of the Flame is going to go after and pursue them. All right. That they're still talking about Avengers 25 in letters page. It's like 3 issues in a row that they've been talking about Avengers 25 because it's about Doctor Doom. So that's fine. All right. That brings us to the end of our second of our 3 issues we're going to look at. And now let's get some closure as we look at, I have to do everything manually now with this new program. We look at Avengers 31 with the not terribly overwhelming title. They've had 2 good titles in a row, and now we get Never Bug a Giant. And a giant that sometimes turns into bug size, by the way, with his girlfriend, who is the Wasp. And he's sometimes Ant-Man. So, yeah, we get it. All right. Great cover again. Very dynamic cover with Cap and Goliath and Hawkeye all being held by tentacles over a flame while the Keeper is standing there waving stuff around. And the strange power of the Keeper, which I keep wanting to call him the Trapper Keeper and the Goalkeeper. What is your goal, Keeper? Tell us what is your goal, Keeper? He should have a 1 on his chest. But anyway, so Avengers 31, and it literally is called, it wasn't just a cover blurb, it is titled Never Bug a Giant. By the way, we're moving on through 66. This is August of 1966. And just 4 more issues to go to get us through 1966. So Hawkeye is sitting there, not sure he wants to go on this mission. Still Stan Lee, Don Heck, Frank Giacoya, Artie Simek. Yeah, so holy cow, you can order an actual Army surplus Jeep through the mail. Does it list? Let's see if it lists. Parachutes, $22. And again, this is 1966, so you can imagine what these cost in today's dollars. That's probably about $150. Boats, $16.45. Shoes, $1.65. Jackets, $3.25. Tents, compasses, holsters, machetes. Holy crap! You can order an Army machete for $2.15. Good Lord. Goggles, 61 cents. Pistol belt, steel helmets, $2.15. Whoa. Giant balloons, model cannons, cartridge belts, steel axes. My gosh, you can order a steel axe for $2.70. Canteens, 67 cents. That'd be awesome. Folding stove, field pack, mirrors, field jackets, bunk beds, life rafts, walkie-talkies, flags, sleeping bags, cots, phones, mine detectors, bugles, hand and leg irons. This is the greatest ad I've ever seen in a comic, y'all. Holy cow. Maps. I can get a map anywhere. Shovels. You already said canteen. Saddles, first aid supplies, sunglasses, mess kits, and hundreds more. Okay, again, the picture shows a Jeep. I want to know how much for the Jeep and how do they mail it to you? I'm dying to know that. All right, let's get on with Never Bug a Giant. So Jan and Cap are like, come on, Clint. And he's like, yeah, all right, let's do it. Grabs him some arrows. They fly off. Meanwhile, a small village nestling in a peaceful Balkan valley. So, yeah, Wanda and Pietro are apparently from Eastern Europe, the Balkan Peninsula. I'm going to say probably north of Greece. That gives you what? Bulgaria, Romania. Yeah, that area right there. So, yeah, Eastern Europe. Oh, and then above that, you have the former Yugoslav republics, Croatia, Slovenia, Serbia, Montenegro, those guys, Bosnia, Herzegovina. So I can't remember off the top of my head, if we ever established, because it's been changed so many times. Look, how do I not know exactly where they're from? How many times has it changed? They've had so many different background origin stories, so many different ones. It's funny too, isn't it? Because as mutants, the origins of their powers never really changes. They're born with them. Boom, that was easy. But but their origin that keeps changing is their parentage, their homeland. You notice in the movies when Wanda was first on there, in, I guess, Avengers Age of Ultron is where she first really did anything. She had an Eastern European accent, and after like one movie, it disappeared and she just sounds normal. And I feel like in one of the, maybe in the Disney Plus show, the WandaVision show or something, maybe they addressed the fact that her accent disappeared very quickly. They just kind of made a joke out of it and threw it away, which is fine. But anyway, it is kind of funny. And I always thought that if they ever did her in the movie, she had to sound like that, and it lasted one movie. So that's fine, whatever. All right. So Goliath and this Prince Ray are walking through this cave, but as they go along, Goliath realizes that Prince Ray is just as bad as Goliath is defending him from the attackers for a while. They do kind of get captured here. No, it's very confusing to me here. Oh, that's his own headquarters, his own crowd. And so he explains exactly why it is that he's fighting the Keeper, and we get a flashback. Oh, that's why I'm confused. It's a flashback. Yeah, I'm like, well, why are they talking here if they're in different places? It's because of flashback. So we're getting a flashback of how I like they're descended from the Incas, and yet dude looks like, Charlton Heston or something, blonde hair, whatever, blue eyes. Okay, descended from the Incas, sure. Hey, so they fight in the flashback, and Goliath is like, you guys are just as bad as each other. Why should I help you? So now the Prince Ray is like, kill Goliath. So now everybody wants to kill him. So they're all out looking, and there's poor Dr. Anton. Dispose of him forever. Take him away. And the remaining Avengers find Goliath's flying vessel, and they are advancing. They run into the local police, and they find out he's not there. And so they take off again. They see some clouds that are mysterious. They land. It must be the Forbidden Land. By the way, I like that Dr. Anton has suddenly changed into like Uncle Sam here. That's interesting. Or is it Colonel Sanders? They kind of look the same. So they land again, and meanwhile, Goliath is fighting the underground people, destroys their equipment. They zap him. The Keeper zaps him with some kind of strength sapping rays. And here come the Avengers fighting. Yeah. Quicksilver, Cap, Hawkeye, they get captured, but Cap doesn't mind that much. Let them capture us for now. We got the Wasp. She can get out of this net. Now, this is a weird panel right here. Look at this. They pull back so far with the camera angle that the villain down here is like a quarter of an inch tall, and all this crowd of people, it just looks like a blur. Why would he think that? And all this dead space, I guess, it's like Don Heck knew Stan Lee well enough to know he's going to say a lot of stuff. There's going to be a lot of words here. I need to make the picture as small as possible, because Stan's just going to load this panel up with text. And then Stan did put a 5-line caption, a 6-line balloon, an 8-line balloon, and a 7-line balloon, all in that panel, and yet there's still a bunch of dead space. That's crazy. So you could have made that a little bit bigger, Don, but you didn't know that. We're in a hurry. We got to move along, get this issue produced. So the Trapper Keeper is lording it over Cap and Hawkeye, and there's those arms that we saw on the cover, grabbing them and holding them out over the fire. But then they're attacked. What a big sound effect that is. Baba Room. The keeper shall protect us. The keeper, behold, the keeper, he is as helpless as we. Then in truth, we are surely doomed. And the keeper says, my whole world crashing down upon my head. It cannot be. It cannot be. Only the forces of Prince Ray are capable of such an attack, but it's impossible. I myself electronically sealed the connecting gateway. It can only be opened by releasing the control from here. Well, guess what? Jan is opening the control from there. Prince Ray comes through. They're fighting, more fighting. Jan gets in another shot at the Trapper Keeper. Good work, honey. Now I'll take it from here. And they smash the panel, but the rays still come. So they got to find a way to put out this fire. Hawkeye shoots an arrow at Cap's command, blows up this big head idol thing. It drops on the fire, puts out the fire. And I love that as the, all right, let's just go through this. Cap, the deadly flame itself is being smothered by the explosion. It's dying away to nothingness. Thank you for telling us what we are seeing. I promise you there were, let me pause for that for just a second to make an editorial comment. I promise you there was a moment somewhere around 1978 when comics told us just enough that they needed to tell us that it made sense, but they didn't explain everything that was happening in the art. It's like every comic before 1978, to one degree or another, told us what we were seeing. They didn't trust the art to get across the meaning at all. Every comic after 1978, we've crossed the Rubicon, we've crossed the Continental Divide. Every comic after 1978, in varying degrees, doesn't tell us what's going on in the art, just relies on us to decipher the art. Sometimes we can, sometimes we cannot. Depends on the artist, depends on the art, depends on the story and the contextual clues we are provided with. Okay? So somewhere in there was that perfect moment in Marvel history where they didn't over-explain or under-explain the art. But this is not that time. Avengers in 1966, because it's dying away to nothingness. And then, right, I suspected that the keeper, this is Cap, must have some way to destroy the flame if it got out of hand. Then when Jan described the devices within that idol, I put two and two together. Way to go, Cap. It was a long shot, but luckily it worked. The cobalt flame is dead. It will never menace the human race again. Now, that seemed like an unnecessary addendum to that little conversation that Hawkeye and Cap were having. And I'm not sure who is saying it, because the first of the utterances it starts with Cap ! Which means it's Hawkeye. The second one is Cap responding. And those balloons are all connected. But then the cobalt flame is dead. It will never menace the human race again is a third separate balloon. Is that Jan? It sounds more like Cap, but it's not connected to the other things Cap is saying. Also, it seems like it came in later because it's got an asterisk and because it covers up a bunch of the picture. All that conversation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 word balloons and a caption box, really cover up what must have been a pretty cool explosion. I'd like to see the original art from this page and this comic without all the word balloons glued all over it. But yeah, the cobalt flame is dead. I'm reading this for the third time. I'm sorry. It will never menace the human race again. How do you know that, Cap? How do you know it will never menace the human race again? After all, this is a Marvel comic where villains survive always, death is not final, and menaces come back as soon as a writer says, you know, it'd be cool to bring that back. I mean, you know, so there's even an asterisk, and in a caption box at the bottom, a footnote, it says, from Stan, allegedly, it says, we added that comforting thought for the benefit of those with anxiety complexes. Sympathetic Stan. So Stan adds the bit about it will never menace the human race again. My gosh, that's the fourth time I've said that. He added that part and then explains why he added it in the story. why the writer added it in the story. I'm not complaining. I continue to be in awe of how Stan Lee could both tell a great story and tell you he's telling you a story and tell you he's telling you a great story all at the same time. That is something that few people could get away with the way he does. It's really remarkable. Yeah. So, all right, with this over with, the fighting stops. The Keeper and Prince Ray really have nothing left to fight over. And strangely, they're not mad at the Avengers. And so the Avengers just walk away. And they don't do anything to punish the Forbidden Land people, because they say, I guess this is, again, Cap. It sounds like Cap. Having lost the power of the flame is a worse punishment than any we could give than any we could have given the Keeper. There are still some things puzzling me, but then all life is a puzzle as well. Honestly, Stan, you could have put that little bit of dialogue in every issue we've looked at from day one on this show. There are still some things puzzling me, but then all life is a puzzle as well. That needs to be the last sentence in every issue during this era, because every issue there are some things puzzling me, but life's a puzzle, so oh well. So Goliath has been talking to Dr. Anton since we left, but he looks so grim, and we find out, and poor Hank is having to be hunched over inside the aircraft. Then you know of nothing that can safely restore me to my normal height again. I'm sorry, Goliath. The only other man who might help you is the most brilliant biochemist in his field, says Dr. Anton. And we get the twisted knife, the big twist ending. The only other man who might help you is a man named Henry Pym. Boom, they fly off into the sunset. Next issue, The Sign of the Serpent. It's a blockbuster. The end. Now, here's what I want to know. Is Hank's reaction, because the doctor doesn't know he's Hank, right? Is Hank's reaction here, oh, great. So he's saying the only other person that would know how to fix this is me, and I don't, so I'm screwed? Or, and this would be so classic for Hank, when Dr. Anton says that Henry Pym could figure it out, Hank suddenly go, hey, wait a minute, I forgot, I'm Henry Pym. Because, he hasn't taken off this Goliath costume since he put it on. Maybe he's just forgotten he's Henry Pym, and now he can sit down at the lab table, as he sometimes does as Henry Pym, and Jan can help him, and he can figure out how to do it. Maybe he just needed to be reminded he's not just a big, dumb muscle guy. He, like I said at the beginning of the show, he is one of the 4 or 5 greatest scientists in this era of the Marvel Universe, and he ought to be able to figure it out if anybody can. He doesn't need an army major medic, and he doesn't need Dr. Anton. He's Henry Pym. He should be able to figure it out. All right. I don't think I have anything from the letters page to mention. I will say that next-ish, a new type of arch foe, they say in the box in the bottom of the letters page, a new type of problem, and a whole caboodle of new plot twists and unexpected developments. As an extra bombshell bonus, you'll see the return of Black Widow, lovelier and more mysterious than ever. You'll see the startling decision of Hawkeye, Captain America's appeal to the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the dramatic ordeal of Goliath and the Wonderful Wasp. But that's only for an appetizer. Our pièce de résistance is the awesome appearance of the Serpent and his horrible horde. Oh, is the Serpent Society or the Sons of the Serpent? Sons of the Serpent, probably, right there. Marvel's got multiple serpent groups. I forget sometimes. Sons of the Serpent. They're the crazy racists, right? Oh boy, this should get interesting. So take a tip from your bullpen buddies, Tiger. When you hear the clarion call, Avengers assemble, drop everything and come a-running. If you miss a second of it, Marveldom will never be the same. There we go. Let's get on out of here. We looked at Avengers 29. We looked at Avengers 30. We looked at Avengers 31. We are making some progress through the ranks of the Stan Lee and Don Heck era. And I have no idea what issue we switch over to Roy Thomas, but I'm enjoying these wacky Stan issues while they last. I continue to be amazed at how Stan can take similar stories month to month and put little twists and characterizations into them that make them somehow more interesting than they ought to be. All right, gang, we're going to wrap it up here. Hope you enjoyed these 3 issues. We'll be back pretty soon with probably, I'll have to look at it exactly to see where I want to break it. Certainly issue 32, maybe 33, maybe 34. I'll try not to do more than 3 issues at a time, but I do want to move us along. All right. Go to www.avengersassemble.net, sign up to become a patron, and check out all the other cool stuff on that website. And I will see you in the next video.